I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons first. Thank you so much to my Bibliospren, Bibliohowlers, and my Bibliomancers. It means a lot to me that you give me your extra support for my passion and hobby. Hi everyone, Petrik here. For today's video, this will be a book recommendation and also at the same time, kinda like telling you whether you should continue or give up reading a series. If you are going to give up with this particular series, when should you give up reading through them? But personally speaking, all these 7 series, in my opinion, are great fantasy or sci-fi series. The last time I posted a video like this, it was about a year ago, and lately, I've been receiving some comments asking, well, for a video like this again. And well, today's video will be about 7 great series worth continuing past the first book, despite of what you felt about the first book. And I'll be dividing this into 4 categories. There will be 2 series for grimdark fantasy, and then 2 series for urban fantasy, and then 2 series for science fiction, and finally 1 series for historical fiction. So yeah, let's get started immediately. The first one will be for grimdark fantasy, and I will start this list with The 5 Warrior Angels by Brian Lee Durfee. Brian Lee Durfee is a great person, a great author, and right now he's recovering from his ordeal, and I do recommend you to pick up his books, not because he is in the state of recovery, but also because his books are really that good, in my opinion. The 5 Warrior Angels consists of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and also finally The Lonesome Crown trilogy. It is a trilogy, and all of them, in my opinion, were incredible. So from my perspective, let's say you felt a bit lukewarm about the first book, The Forgetting Moon. But in my opinion, it is absolutely worth trying the second book, The Blackest Heart. The Blackest Heart to me is a huge improvement over The Forgetting Moon. And I already like The Forgetting Moon, but The Blackest Heart is simply on another level. The world building has escalated, and also it was really fun somehow seeing the mix of epic classic fantasy and also epic grimdark fantasy. There were plenty of tropes being utilized by Brian Lee Durfee throughout the entire trilogy, but especially in The Forgetting Moon and also The Blackest Heart. Kind of like the Fellowship of the Ring in Lord of the Rings. But there were plenty of twists implemented into the narrative in The Blackest Heart. And also in The Forgetting Moon, really. But yeah, that's really my thoughts. So if you felt lukewarm about The Forgetting Moon, if you like grimdark fantasy, you like classic epic fantasy, but you feel like The Chosen One or Prophecy's trope felt too predictable, well, I think The 5 Warrior Angels will surprise you. And yeah, if you feel like The Blackest Heart is still not clicking with you, then I think it is the right time for you to give up with the series. But until then, I do recommend you to pick up the series until you read The Blackest Heart. It is one of my favorite trilogies, and The Blackest Heart is the best book in the trilogy, in my opinion. And then after that, of course, I will have to choose The First Law World, or The First Law Trilogy to be more precise, by Joe Abercrombie. Even to this day, even though Joe Abercrombie has always been hailed as one of the best epic fantasy and of course one of the best grimdark fantasy authors, there are still plenty of people saying that, they are asking whether they should continue after The Blade itself, because they felt disappointed with The Blade itself, or maybe they felt that it was good, but at the same time, it's not as satisfying or as amazing as people are saying, like myself included, because I love this series very much. The First Law World is my favorite grimdark fantasy series of all time. But as I always say, yes, definitely pick up before they are hanged. The second book in the First Law trilogy, I think this is where the story starts to progress at a very good pacing. And also, the first book, The Blade itself, is one of the most character-driven epic fantasy novel, in my opinion. Yes, not too many events happen in The Blade itself. Most of The Blade itself is really about characterizations, character background, establishing the characters, and also making sure they are ready for the plot progression in before they are hanged. But after doing a second read of The Blade itself, I think it somehow became one of my favorite books of all time. The first time I read through The Blade itself, yes, I do kind of get what you're saying. It felt like the plot progressed only a bit, but on the second time I read through it, it really felt like I could totally appreciate what Abercrombie is doing with The Blade itself. The characterizations in the First Law World is really second to none. It is amazing, and the First Law trilogy, it still contains some of the most iconic characters in all of fantasy, in my opinion. Logan Ninefingers, Sandan Glokta, and there are still plenty of other characters just from the First Law trilogy. And I'm not even talking about the First Law World. But yeah, That's my advice. If you read the plot itself and you felt like you were disappointed with it, I do still recommend you to continue to Before They Are Hanged. If Before They Are Hanged is still not clicking with you, then yeah, it might be the right time for you to give up reading The First Low World by Joe Abercrombie. But until then, please give the series a try until Before They Are Hanged. But just like The Forgetting Moon and also the next book that I'm going to mention, I still love the first book very much. The Forgetting Moon, the Blade itself, and also the next one, the first book, are all some of my favorite books of all time. So let's move on to science fiction first. I was going to talk about urban fantasy, but let's leave that after I talk about science fiction. So for science fiction, the first one, and this is probably the main reason why I made this video today. This is about the Sun Eater series by Christopher Ruocchio. So I think many of you know that for the past 6 months, I've been obsessed with the Sun Eater series by Christopher Ruocchio. And well, now that I'm done catching up with the entire series, not only the main novels, but also the main novellas and also the collection of short stories. Now, I still get some questions. Some readers feel a bit disappointed with Empire of Silence, and they were wondering whether they should continue with the Sun Eater series or not. And for me, as some of you might know from my review of Empire of Silence, I absolutely love Empire of Silence. I consider it the best science fiction debut of all time, or the best science fantasy debut of all time. It is absolutely incredible, well written, and I love everything about Empire of Silence. But from other readers' perspective, it will be different. So yeah, that's fair. So my advice is this: try to read until the end of Howling Dark. I think you will get an idea or an instinct on whether the series will work for you or not. Please do not judge Howling Dark from the first about 100 pages. Even the first time I read through Howling Dark, the transition, the big time jump from Empire of Silence to Howling Dark, it really took me some time to get used to. So please do not judge Howling Dark from the first 100 pages or so. I kind of forgot how many pages were the first section of Howling Dark before they arrive into I must not mention the planet, before they arrive at this important planet in the Sun Eater. But after they arrive in this particular planet, you will know what I'm talking about. This is when the Sun Eater series gets to become, well, you will see Christopher Ruocchio's incredible vision and also ambitious scope for the series from this planet forward. It is incredible. I loved it, and yeah, the ending of Howling Dark, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. Still one of the best endings in the Sun Eater series, and that's saying a lot considering how epic and unforgettable was the ending of Demon in White, Kingdoms of Death, Ashes of Man, and also this Quiet Gods. Well, every book in the Sun Eater. Really, I love this series very much. And yeah, if you read Empire of Silence and you are wondering whether you should continue or not, I do think you have to continue until the end of Howling Dark. If you feel that Howling Dark is still not clicking with you, as I said, feel free to drop reading the series. Although my heart is telling you to again continue to Demon in White, because Demon in White and also Kingdoms of Death, well, they are some of the best books in the Sun Eater series. But yeah, that's really my recommendation. For the next science fiction series, this is about the Remembrance of Earth's Past Trilogy by Cixin, or as many people know, the Three-Body Problem Trilogy. This is one of those series where I felt a bit disappointed about the first book. Yeah, I felt a bit disappointed about Three-Body Problem because, as I always say in my reviews and also in my videos, I love character-driven stories. I love feeling connected and immersed in characters' thoughts, feelings, and actions. That's what I love to read, and what I think is the best reason why I love reading, because we really get to be inside the characters' heads and actions. This intimacy and connection with the characters' thoughts and inner feelings is one of the biggest reasons why I love reading fantasy and sci-fi novels, or just reading books in general. But I did not get that in the Three-Body Problem. In the first book of Remembrance of Earth's Past, it is filled with incredible ideas, amazing scenes, and of course, awesome science fiction theories. The entire trilogy is really a hard science fiction. It is not a soft sci-fi. But I was a bit disappointed with the characterizations in the Three-Body Problem. So my recommendation is to try reading until The Dark Forest. And I know this is only a trilogy, but trust me, The Dark Forest is worth it. It is my favorite book in the trilogy. It is one of my favorite science fiction books of all time. It is amazing, the Doomsday battle and the teardrop scene. If you have read The Dark Forest, you will know what I'm talking about. And also Ruocchio as a character, he is so much more well developed compared to all the other characters in the entire Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. I recommend you to read the series up to Dark Forest at least. And also, Dark Forest had a very satisfying ending. I mean, if let's say Cixin, you decided to end the series at the ending of Dark Forest, it will be a satisfying ending still. So yeah, that's my recommendation. So we still have 3 series left on today's video. The next one will be about urban fantasy. So for the first one, I will be mentioning the series that I talk about quite often on my YouTube channel, and it is Paternus Trilogy by Dyrk Ashton. So the first book is Paternus, and then the second book is Paternus Wrath of Gods, and finally Paternus War of Gods. But Paternus, the first book in the trilogy, Paternus Rise of Gods, well, let's just say that the first 200 pages, it really felt like a YA urban fantasy novel. And no, that is not a good thing in my book. I do not like reading YA urban fantasy novel. And for a while, I almost gave up. Not gonna lie, I almost gave up reading Paternus, the first book in the trilogy. But after the first 200 pages or so, there was a shift, and we're finally starting to get into what Dyrk Ashton is trying to achieve with the Paternus trilogy. The combination of mythologies, and also you can tell just how well researched this entire trilogy is. And I'm really just talking about Paternus, just the first book here. If I'm talking about the entire trilogy, well, the Paternus trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies. It is an incredible trilogy, and I love mythologies, I love epic urban fantasy, and epic urban fantasy simply doesn't get more epic in scope than Paternus trilogy. If you have read Paternus War of Gods, you will understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, if you are reading this, if you are reading Paternus trilogy, try to read until at least the end of Paternus Rise of Gods. And of course, if you want to try it, try reading Paternus Wrath of Gods, just the beginning section, and then you will understand that it is definitely an adult urban fantasy, and I loved it very much. I still think that this is an underrated urban fantasy trilogy, just like the next series I'm going to recommend. This is about Heartstrikers by Rachel Aaron. And for this one, the first book is Nice Dragons Finish Last, and I recommend you to not judge the series immediately just from the first book. The first book is alright. It is good. But at the same time, this is just an introductory installment. It is a short novel, and you probably won't feel satisfied from reading Nice Dragons Finish Last. But once you reach the second book, I think One Good Dragon After Another, I think that's the title, well, everything just escalates into a new level. And I think the second book is my favorite in the entire 5-book series of Heartstrikers by Rachel Aaron. And I really need to continue reading more of Rachel Aaron's books. Somehow, after finishing Heartstrikers, I haven't read anything by Rachel Aaron yet, and I think that is a mistake. But just like Paternus Trilogy, these 2 series, I think they are quite underrated, and I do recommend you to pick up these books. And finally, the last recommendation, this is about Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. The entire Warlord Chronicles trilogy, or the Arthurian trilogy by Bernard Cornwell, they are all amazing books in my opinion. But not gonna lie, the first 200 pages of the first book, The Winter King, it took me some time. It really took me some time to get used to the writing and also the pacing. But somehow, after I reached the second half of The Winter King, it became better. It felt like, well, I got used to the writing style and also the pacing, and I became enamored with The Winter King. This was recommended to me by John Gwynne, the author behind Faithful and the Fallen, and also of Blood and Bone Trilogy and the Blood Swan Saga. Without John Gwynne's recommendation, I don't think I would have read the Warlord Chronicles trilogy in the first place, because back then I remember I was so immersed into reading more and more epic fantasy and science fiction. I do not think I would have read this historical fiction series, but I'm really glad I did. I think reading this made me try more and more historical fiction novels that I love. But back to my point, if you are reading Warlord Chronicles, Bernard Cornwell's writing is the best in this trilogy. And you can tell the improvement in quality starting from the second book, Enemy of God, and of course finally Excalibur, the third book in the Warlord Chronicles trilogy. I gave both Enemy of God and also Excalibur, both of them, a 5 out of 5 stars rating. I love them very much. Winter King is the lowest of the trilogy, but I still gave that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is just that good. And lately I've been receiving comments about gratitude. They are saying thank you for my recommendations on Warlord Chronicles. And well, I must say you're welcome, because I love this series too. And I don't know, it has been a while since I talked about Warlord Chronicles, and I'm really starting to miss this series. Maybe it's the right time for me to do a second read of the Warlord Chronicles. After all, it has been like 7 years, I think, since I read the trilogy for the first time. So yeah, for Warlord Chronicles, try to read until the second book, or at least until you're done with the Winter King. Do not DNF the book in the middle. Try to finish the novel first. But yeah, that's really my recommendation and my advice on this 7 great series, and all of them are worth continuing past the first book. I really hope this video has been informational and useful to all of you watching this. And yeah, do let me know what you think about the series that I mentioned in today's video. And of course, let me know some series in your opinion that are definitely worth pushing past the first book. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it from me today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.